Welcome to World Kitchen for January. This show is a little bit unusual today in that our guest chef, who is from Nigeria, is not going to be able to be with us on the regular World Kitchen Day. So we're pre-recording this a couple of weeks ahead of time. We hope that she will be back in time to be on Zoom with us as you're watching this on January 30th. But if not, I will be there and I'll try to answer your questions. And we can always send Dale questions later if you have them. So I want to thank you for joining us and say that, per Penn State policy, we are being very careful today. When we're off camera, we're wearing our masks. And Deo is here with two of her children. And as their family members, they're fine with being unmasked in close proximity to each other. But when we're not on camera, we'll be masking. The other thing I want to do is to thank our sponsor for the second month now. We have a sponsor, and that is the Penn State Outreach and Online Education Office of Inclusion, Equity, and Diversity. And we thank them for their sponsorship. And now I think that's about it. And what I would like to do is introduce my friend and colleague, Deo Olorunnisola, and she will introduce her children. So take it away, Deo.
Thank you. Well, hello and welcome to World Kitchen Nigerian Style today. I'm sorry I'm not here live in person, but we will make every effort to be here to be able to answer questions. Hopefully I can explain things well enough that you can actually go ahead and do some of this for yourself. I want to introduce my children who are going to be cooking with me today. This is my daughter, Adedayo Olorunnisola, but we call her Dayo, and my son, Ademola Olorunnisola, and we call him Dami. So Nigeria has a rich culture of naming our children for situations that surround their birth or circumstances that are important to the family or to honor a situation or person. But sometimes names are very long, and almost every Nigerian has a name that is truncated. So my full name is Moradeyo, which means I see a crown of joy, but they call me Deyo. And Adedayo, we call Dayo, but Adedayo means a crown of joy. And Dami's name means, do you know what your name means?
Crown of wealth.
Yes, crown of wealth. So crown is a common theme in our name. We are also dressed in our Nigerian clothes, which we wear as often as we can because we like dressing up in Nigerian clothes. You will see I'm probably the most traditionally dressed. Well, maybe Dami is. He's wearing a typical top and bottom that we would wear in Nigeria, and Dayo is a fashionista, Nigerian style. She is wearing an evolved Nigerian clothing. And we'll talk a little bit more as we go on about how cultures intersect and evolve and meld and create something else. It's one of the things that I find most interesting about my travels around the world. There's so many similarities and so many things that we've borrowed from other cultures and incorporated into our own. And I think that's really awesome. You'll find the same thing with food, at least that's my experience. So today we're going to make a couple of Nigerian recipes that are fairly popular, and you will find all over the place. There are recipes online if you want to experiment and do things in a little different way. We're going to make jollof rice, which is ubiquitous in West Africa. All the West African countries have their version of jollof rice, and we compete. I, of course, am Nigerian, so Nigerian jollof rice has to be the best. And you find it at parties, you find it for special meals, you find it for everyday meals. And then we'll pair that with a chicken that is made in a sauce. It's braised in a sauce. Again, sauces are a huge part of our menu in Nigeria. I'll show you how to make that. The base for both of these things will be a tomato sauce. So that's something that makes it easy to make many different things. And then we're going to make a salad. Yes, Nigerians eat salad, but it's not your grandmother's salad, I must say. We'll show you that recipe as well. And then bonus, this is not on the websites as far as menus, but if you have access to plantains, which are readily available in the State College area these days, we're going to make some fried plantains, which we pair with with rice almost every time we make it. All right, So with that said, we're gonna start with the chicken. I'm gonna step out for a minute. Can you pass me the chicken, Dane? And can you pass me the pan, Dio? And some cooking spray, if you have any. So I'm gonna move that over for just a second. And I'm going to spray the pan so that the chicken does not stick to the bottom. So we just do a general spray. Now, I must tell you that, speaking of evolved things, this is an evolved way of making this chicken dish. If I was at home in Nigeria, in a place where I could get hard chicken, what we call hard chicken, which is free range chicken, I would have my chicken seasoned, but I would boil it first or cook it on the stove to get it nice and soft. But this chicken does not need that. So I don't want to overcook it. So I'm just going to roast it in the oven for a little while, or maybe about 20 minutes until it's until it's brown on one side. And then I'm going to turn it and give it some color on the other side as well. And then I'm going to spray some oil on top to help that spraying situation.
Theo, what was on your chicken?
Oh, yes, thank you. So a mixture of spices that included thyme, curry, chicken bouillon powder. I have in there some salt and pepper as well. And I put some cayenne pepper as well on there to give it a little spice.
Some ginger, I think.
Yes, and a little bit of ginger. So mix that. You should, if you have the time and the opportunity, prepare this the night before and have it marinate or season overnight to help that flavor really get deep into the chicken. So that's it. I'm going to walk this over to the oven and stick that in there. Thank you. All right, and then I'm going to wash my hands because I've been touching the chicken. All right. So the other thing, if you are an experienced cook, you know that you're never just cooking one thing at a time, right? So we're gonna do several things going at the same time. The next thing that I wanna get started on is my jollof rice. And here I have about 4 cups of parboiled rice. There are many different kinds of rice. The best rice for this dish is parboiled rice. Although you can also use basmati. I didn't want to do that today because the most common rice that you would use for this dish is parboiled rice. And you can find this in grocery stores pretty easily. So I should tell you that everybody will have their style in the kitchen. I've experimented with parboiled, first pre-cooking my rice and then before I get it into my dish. But I found that it is so much easier for me if I just soak the rice in boiling water for a little while. So I'm going to add a little bit of salt here, and then I will soak the rice in boiling water, and then just set that aside. You want to add the water too? So Dio is doing that, and just put it in there, stir it a little bit to loosen the rice, and then just let it go. And the rice will soak up a lot of that water by the time we're ready to put it in our dish. So what I'm going to do next is blend my tomatoes, onions, and peppers for both the rice and for the sauce that we're going to make for the chicken. So what I have in here, what is going to end up being 3 red peppers. Oops. So I'm going to take the seeds out of my red peppers because I don't want that. It adds a little bitterness to the sauce, and just chunk them. This is going to depend on your blender. This is a pretty heavy duty blender that we're going to use here today, so we don't really need to cut it into small pieces. And I have some tomatoes. You can use, I tend to use Roma tomatoes when I'm making sauces. And the reason being that Roma tomatoes have the least amount of water. So I'm just gonna cut that up, have it in there. And then some onions. any kind of onions. I tend to use a lot of red onions because Dio prefers red onions, right?
Sure.
Yes. So do you want to blend that for us? And you can, there's a little bit of water in the bottom of the blender, but we may need to add a little bit more. I want to add as little water as possible so that we can. Okay, then, so obviously our blender out, it's not quite try again. Ready? Oh yeah. This. That loosens things up for the blender there. All right. All right. I have to give up and add a little bit more water because things aren't moving. Okay. Now, depending on the power of your blender, that may have taken more time or less time if you have an even more powerful one than what we used here. So that is now blended, and we're going to pour it into the pot to get cooking. So can we just yeah. All right. So we just pour it into a pan. You can get a pan this size or larger, depending on how much you're cooking for. And then put it on the stove. And we're gonna cook that down quite a bit. Now, that's gonna take a little bit of time. I've taken a shortcut to get us to the end faster. I can my tomato mixture that I just made. I cook it down, and when you're done cooking it down, this is what it looks like. Oh, there we go. So it looks like that when it's cooked down, right? So now I'm going to get the stew started for our jollof rice, right? So I'm going to go over to the stove, and we're going to begin with oil in a pan. You want the biggest pot that you can get for this so that your rice has room to expand.
Dave, are you going to turn on the overhead light? It might give you a, it's, yes,
Perfect. And so you measure your oil in. I think I have half a cup of oil for this recipe. You will find some recipes that have a whole lot more oil, but I don't find that's necessary to put all that much oil in. Here, when my oil is warm or hot, I will add my onions. And then the first thing we're going to do is cook down the tomato paste. All right, so we have the oil in the pan to get our jollof rice base going. And now I'm going to add about, I'm going to add the onion to that. And I'm just going to stir that around. I don't want the heat too high because I don't want to scorch the onions. And I especially don't want to scorch the tomato paste that I'm going to add to the mixture in just a second. So here is my tomato paste. This is a 6-ounce can of tomato paste. So I'm going to use the whole can.
Dale, I know you say that you can a lot. Do you also make your own tomato paste?
No,
Okay.
that is a little past my grade pay scale.
Sure.
I don't think I have the patience that it would take to cook tomato paste to this thickness. All right, so we are now in cooking mode. And what you want to do, tomato paste is pretty tangy. And so I want to break this off in here and cook it until it is not tangy anymore. That should take about 3 to 5 minutes. And you need, this is a great pot for this because it's coated, what do you call
Non-stick?
this? Non-stick, yes. So things shouldn't burn too easily, but still you want to keep an eye on it and sort of move things around so that it's cooking evenly and not burning at all. You don't want that burn. You don't want that burn taste at this stage. All right. So we are cooking away on the tomato paste, and I'm just going to stay with it and keep stirring it as we cook it so that it doesn't burn and so that it cooks evenly. We eat jollof rice in our house about once a week or once every 2 weeks, right, Gaia? And Gaia has become a great jollof rice chef, cooker. So while this is cooking, I can show you the spices. These are the spices for a jollof rice. So I have in here some chicken, bouillon, some rosemary. I have some bay leaves, white pepper, thyme, curry, and some ginger, right? And a little bit of salt as well. Once my tomato is cooked, in an African kitchen, you're not really measuring as precisely as we do in some other cooking, certainly not like baking. So you test doneness and spice and the correct taste by tasting. So I think I've been cooking this for about 3 minutes now, and we are very close. We are very close to having it done. So we're very close to getting it done. I've been cooking this for about 3 minutes now. And I'm going to taste. A spoon, please. Thank you. Need to cook it a little bit more. Thank you. Still pretty tangy. You will notice on this stove here that our pepper mixture that we blended a few minutes ago is beginning to cook over. You need to keep an eye on it at this stage because you don't want it to boil over and make a mess all over your stove. So one of the tricks of the trade that I have is to put just a drop or two of oil in it at this stage, and that will keep it from boiling over without you having to continually stir it. Maybe about a teaspoon to a tablespoon of oil. All right, I think we're good now. I am now going to add my spice mixture that I showed you earlier into the pot. Right. And basically incorporating that, but also toasting the spices that you're doing is basically layering your your flavors and your ingredients on to create the final product. You can smell, you can begin to smell the spices toasting at this stage. And now our sauce. Did I open this one already? Yep, I did. Okay, so that's the sauce. That's the cooked down version of what's going on over here. And I'm just going to add that into the pot.
Do you think that's about a quart?
That's about a quart, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It does smell amazing. I think I'm smelling the chicken baking or
Yes.
roasting, and yeah, it really smells great.
All right, I'm going to add a little bit of water to this, and what I will do is rinse out my bottle and add the rest of that into it. Thank you, Dayo. Thank you. All right, and then we can let that sort of cook down a little bit. I don't have to watch it at this stage that much. Okay, so what else have we done here? The rest of our ingredients, besides the rice, the only other ingredients that we need for this dish is a dice of about half of a large bell pepper, or, well, if you have a bell pepper this size, we dice up just one, and one red pepper this size, and then a medium-sized onion. And we're going to set this aside, and we're going to add that along with our butter into the rice when it is done cooking. Okay, so now what I want to do is get started on the sauce that's going to go with the chicken. Okay, so while we are working on the sauce for the jollof rice, I'm going to get started on the sauce for the chicken. Dayo, you might want to check the, Vinny, can you check the chicken to see if we need to turn it yet? So our oil is now hot enough to take our onions. We always start with an onion base. You'll notice in Nigerian cooking. So let's add some onions. Right. And again, I'm going to take it till it is translucent. Multitasking is a talent that all of us need in the kitchen. All right. Okay, we're almost ready. So remember, at the beginning, we put our rice in a pot with some boiling water. Dayo is going to pour all of that into the strainer now, so we can strain the water out. Then can I have the other jar for her? Good? Yeah, all right. Okay, I'll pour that in.
So that's going into the pan with all of the sauce.
Yes,
right?
that's the jollof rice sauce that we worked on.
Okay. Stir to combine.
Okay, waste not, want not. I'm gonna get the rest of the rice in there. Now, if you are a person like me, you're always looking for ways to shorten your time in the kitchen. so you can get dinner on the table faster. If you're comfortable using pressure cookers or those quick pots, at this stage, you can actually take your rice, instead of continuing to cook it on the stove, you can pour it in a pressure cooker and add your liquid, the rest of the liquid in the recipe to it, and then let it go for about 10-12 minutes, and you will have your jollof rice ready to go. But we're going to do it on the stove today because we want to do it the old-fashioned way, so you can see how the process works. All right, our onion's ready here, so I'm going to get the spices for the sauce, which includes some curry, some bouillon powder, thyme, and some rosemary. I'm just going to add all of that to my pot here. Wait to add salt to this. Or we will add some salt at one point. We're going to toast that again and get all of those wonderful aromas going. So you'll notice that we haven't added any liquid to the rice yet. I want this to sort of toast a little bit, and we're going to keep stirring it so it doesn't burn at this stage. And this is on medium heat at this point. You can smell that, can't you, Tamara?
I definitely can smell that. It's amazing.
All right, now my cooked down tomato, onion, and pepper paste sauce goes in here. All right. A little bit of water. Right. Yeah, you can let this go covered a little bit here. And while that's doing, I'm going to go back over to the oven to check on the chicken. Yes, I think we're ready to turn. Yes. So it has a little bit more color on it.
You can put on.
Get the toast margarine.
Yeah, they're looking beautifully browned. We used our convection setting on the oven, which
Yes.
Deo showed me because I've lived in this house for 14 years and never used the convection setting on my oven. So I'm learning today.
Yes. So what we're doing is combining a couple of steps in the cooking process, which is that we would normally have in Nigeria. And so we're doing both the boiling and the frying at this point. And the doctors tell us that frying our food is not that good for us. So it's nice to not be able to not be doing that. All right. So I think our rice is probably ready for the rest of the liquid. I am going to taste to make sure that my.
You can just get a clean one out.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to waste your spoon.
No, please, go ahead.
I'm just gonna taste. The rice is not done at all, but I just wanna test the flavors. Yes. If you feel like a little bit more salt, this is the time to add it. That is gonna add our chicken stock. And we wanna add enough liquid to cook the rice without having to add any more at all throughout the rest of the cooking. So on your recipe, there is it calls for water. I think that's enough there. Okay, it calls for some water, but you don't need to add water if you're using chicken stock. If you're using just bouillon powder because you don't have chicken stock at home, then you want to use that 2 cups of water. But if you're using chicken stock, you don't need water. You just want to cover it maybe a little bit more. And you want enough liquid to just cover the rice. Remember that we soaked it in boiling water for a while, so it has some good. So it has some softness to it already. The rice does. So with that on, we want to turn that to a lower heat, and we just let it go. And the goal is to not stir this at all while this is cooking. So it should just do its thing. And if you want to look over here, our sauce is coming to a boil. And this sauce we can have cooking on here for a while. I'm going to add my salt at this point. I want to taste. Yeah, and salt. All right, so this is the, start with a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. You can always add salt, but you can't take it out once you add it, right? So I'm going to just do that by eye. And remember that tomato has some tanginess to it already, so you don't need a lot of salt when you're cooking that down. And also, as this concentrates down, the flavors will become more intense. So you don't really need a lot of salt to go in here.
Theo, are these, I know you said you've adjusted these recipes over time to make them a little easier for you to do here. But are these traditional family recipes that you are using and adjusting?
Right. So because we don't tend to cook by recipe in Nigeria, you can say that everything that you cook is a traditional family recipe because you learn from your grandmother and your mother how to cook. Not just female children, but certainly female children, but children learn by watching, right? So I remember from when I was a really young girl, just being in the kitchen. I dare not be anywhere but in the kitchen when my mother or my grandmother are cooking, even if I'm not doing anything. Just standing there watching them cook is the way that I learned to cook. So I go to somebody else's house and they're cooking that exact same dish, but they're doing it completely differently. Taste the same, it may taste a little different, but that is just the way we learn. Now you notice that I did not put any habaneros or spicy peppers in these dishes because I'm cooking for people whose tolerance for pepper might be different than mine, right? So when I'm cooking for guests, unless I know them really well, I know their tolerance level, I would take the spices out. And actually, even within my family, I have much more tolerance for spice than my husband or my children do. So I tend not to cook with a lot of the habaneros, even though I love it. Yeah. So if you're going to add spicy peppers into your recipe, the stage when you are boiling down the peppers is when you blend that in with your pepper and add them on at that point. All right. So I think we're good here. We're gonna let that continue to cook. And then we're going to shift. Oh, I forgot to add my tomato paste. This is a good time to add the tomato paste. Now, because I'm cooking a sauce that I'm going to cook for a long, long time, it doesn't matter. I don't have to add the tomato paste at the very beginning as I did with the rice. Right, so I'm just gonna add that there because it will cook down as part of the sauce.
I think it's interesting because I find the same thing when I'm cooking Persian food. I've watched probably hundreds of Persian women cooking their rice, and it all comes out beautiful and tastes delicious, but almost every one of them has a slightly different way of doing it, or rinsing the rice, or when to add this or that. Some add oil, some add butter. You know, it just depends on your personal preference, but it all comes out beautiful and tastes delicious.
Yes, cooking is not meant to be a very precise, straitjacket kind of experience, right? You do what works well for you. I love to cook, but like most of you, I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit on this just so that we have it just simmering there. But I don't have a lot of time, especially during the week. So pre-cooking and cooking in bulk is two of my kitchen hacks, right? So that's how I stumbled into canning my tomatoes. I just found that cooking a sauce takes 30 minutes instead of an hour and a half, right? Because I've cut down the cooking time. All right, so while we're doing that, we want to get started on our salad, but we cheated, we already got started. My children chopped all of the ingredients for the salad, and what we have here is our lettuce and our cabbage. We have cucumbers that we peeled and cored. And then we have tomatoes that we just sliced. Now, you want the salad to be as dry as possible. So, if you're making a salad, usually you use all of the leaves and you wash it beforehand. Now, you can do that in this case as well. But what I did instead was I peeled the outer layers of my lettuce and my cabbage, and assuming that the inside is more sanitized, and there's no need to rinse it because I want the salad to be very dry at this stage. And what you will find, you can either arrange these ingredients discreetly on a platter or in a bowl, as we've done here, or you can just mix it all together. It really just depends on your taste. But I have here cooked potatoes, diced and cooked potatoes, and I'm going to just add that as well. So it's nice and colorful looking. And we diced and cooked. Well, I didn't actually cook the carrots because I didn't want them soft and soggy. What I did was just boil some water and poured it over the carrots and let it sit for about 5 minutes, and then I strained it, right? So there, gonna add that to the mix. Is that looking beautiful?
Lovely.
And then we have baked beans, but this is not your American baked beans. This is Heinz, the British kind, which is a little more sweet and doesn't have that barbecue flavor that you have with baked beans here. So what I have done is just poured it into a strainer and had it sit for a while to keep it to get as much of the liquid out as possible. I want some. And then what we're going to do next is add some eggs to this. And I'm going to get a small knife, which I think I can find here. Yep. Now, talk about, talk about evolving cooking. If you had an egg slicer, you just pop your eggs in the egg slicer and you arrange it. If you look at pictures of this on the internet, you will see that the eggs are either quartered or sliced. So we're gonna slice it. Do you guys want to arrange while I slice? Sure. So this salad is heavy enough to be a meal in its own, on its own right. You have protein here, you have vegetables, you have everything you need to make a meal, but it's a salad. Now there's a recipe on the website for World Kitchen with a dressing for this salad. I'm gonna wash my hands. Tim, do you want to stay on 2 pots, please? All right. Thank you. Ta-da! So that's the salad, shortcut method of making a salad. The dressing for the salad, the recipe, was an approximation of this. Why do we use this? I don't know. I'm not advertising for Heinz, believe me, but it is it is the dressing that we traditionally used on this recipe. You could try it with a different kind of dressing that is your favorite, really, or no dressing at all if you like. But we can make the homemade version. It's really simple. But since I have this, you can buy this baked beans and this salad dressing on Amazon. I will tell you that the salad dressing particularly is a little pricey, so you might want to try the recipe that we have online. Now, on the recipe, I think I put the term used is powdered sugar, which is what we call it, but it is actually confectioner's sugar. That might be a more similar, a more familiar term for you, right? And we're going to hold off the recipe, adding the dressing to the salad until we are ready to eat it, right? You can either add it on. I've seen people who mix it all in with the dressing so that you have no choice in how much dressing you get on your salad. I've also seen people just garnish the salad with the dressing and then put the rest of it on the side so people can add to as they need. Or you can just leave the dressing off completely. That actually helps the salad keep a little longer because it doesn't have a dressing wilting it down, right? So that's what the salad looks like. And I'm going to go over here and check my rice. So rice is cooking away. I'm not going to do any heavy duty stirring here. What I want to do is just lift it off the bottom, especially if I'm using a non-stick pot. You can see that it is absorbing the moisture nicely. And we let it go. How's the sauce, Dame? How's the sauce?
That's good.
Is it ready?
Oh,
Did you taste it? Maybe. How do you know it's cooked if you don't taste it, right? Right? All right. So I'm gonna let it keep cooking. I'm going to check on the chicken to see how we are doing here. Things are going well in the oven. All right, it is not quite done. I'm gonna let it keep going. And while we're doing that, so we're gonna get started on our bonus dish, which is the fried plantains. And I need a skillet. You can use any size skillet that you have, but I'm using this because I've taken up all of the stove, and I want the pan to heat evenly. So I'm going to save some space. You can do this frying in your air fryer as well. You can also do this in your deep fryer if you're more comfortable doing that. So while that is heating up, I'm going to come over here and slice up my plantains. Now there are also options for you when you're doing plantains. And what I want to do is cut off the ends like that, right? And take the skin off. And what you do is slice down the middle. This skin is a little thicker than you would find on a typical banana. Oh, by the way, you want your plantain to be ripe. It doesn't have to be all black. It can be just a golden or yellow or orange if you want to, can look like that all through, but you want it to be ripe. This is almost there. You see that it's still a little green. So you want to, well, we can fry this as well, but it won't be as sweet. The riper it is, the sweeter it gets. So I take the skin off. I can either dice this or I can cut it into slices. I'm going to do the slices today. And if you say, how is she doing that and not cutting her hand? It's practice, right? I'm just bringing it down enough to hit my palm, but not, slice my hand. Or you can be safe and go like that. And of course, you want them to be mostly the same size.
What do you think the thickness is on that? Maybe a half an inch?
Or maybe I'd say quarter inch.
Quarter inch,
Yeah.
Okay.
And having it cut to the same size just helps it all cook very quickly. Because there's sugars in here, it will start out cooking a little slow and then rapidly get to cooked. So when you're cooking your fried plantains, you don't want to leave it alone, right? So I'm gonna wait for my oil to get a little warm, and then I'm going to wash my hands while I wait. So you will also notice that in Nigerian cooking, we use a lot of, I feel like I use a lot of dishes. And so one of the things that I learned growing up was continuously clean while you're cooking. Otherwise, you will have a sink full of dishes at the end, and then nobody wants to do the dishes, least of all me. All right, I'm gonna test my oil to see if it's hot enough. I can tell that it is not hot enough because it is not rippling. So we'll let it keep going. While I'm waiting for the oil to get hot, I am going to check my stew, and as you can see, it is cooking down, and you know your stew is almost ready when you can begin to see the oil floating on the top like that. So this is oil, yeah, right? And depending on your household, you use a lot of oil or very little. I only use about half a cup here because I don't like a lot of oil in my food, right? And not only can I see the oil, when I've stirred it all together, I can see that it is popping. and splattering. And I don't want that splattering to my oil, so I'm going to cover it back up. But this is almost ready. And who wants to fry plantains? Him or Dio? Or both? I can take turns. I think the oil is enough. All right, while they're doing that, I'm going to slip back here and check on the chicken.
So I'm just gonna add the plantains in a nice even layer in the bottom of the pan. I'm gonna stick up a little bit. Oh, yeah, so you just wanna add your plantains in a nice even layer at the bottom of the pan. You want them all to be in contact with the oil just so that they cook evenly and at about the same rate. Don't want them layered one on top of the other. And just be careful as you do this because you can have like oil splattering back up at you if you just add them in too fast. Definitely something you want to take your time with. And then while that first round is going, you're going to want to prepare like a plate or a bowl with a paper towel in it just to catch the excess dripping as the plantains become ready. And you're just going to let those go until they're golden brown on one side, flip, and then let them go until they're golden brown on the other. And the more rounds you make, the faster it goes. The first round is always the slow one.
I think the pan is heating, the oil is still heating.
Yeah. And if at any point in the process your oil starts to smoke, that means it's too hot. You're going to want to turn it down because that's going to burn your plantains on the outside, but the inside's not going to be cooked at all. So we can kind of see them starting to get some color, especially the ones on the edges. Check. Yeah, that's a little light. Let them go for a couple seconds longer.
So I assume, like your mother said, you've been watching her cook and
Yeah.
learning along the way.
Definitely.
She tells me you've gotten to be pretty good.
I'd like to think so. So you're gonna want like a nice even color on them. And we'll just let those go until the other side is done as well.
Would you say that's about 60 to 90 seconds on each side?
Yeah. Depends.
Precisely.
It varies depending on how hot your oil is.
Yes.
Yeah, I noticed that too with things that I'm frying as the second round or third round tends to go much faster. And I think it's just that everything's good and hot and it
Yes.
Exactly.
really goes quickly.
So these are looking done, I think. So when it comes time to take them out, you kind of want to move quickly so you don't burn them, and then transfer them over to your prepared dish. That's part of why you want to have it ready, just so that you're not scrambling around and burning your plantains in the process. Right. And then you can just go our first batch.
Yay.
And you can just go ahead and fry the rounds back to back.
Okay, we'll let Daya go ahead and work on those.
While Dio is cooking that, I am going to get chicken out, and you can see that we have nice color on the chicken here. You get the oven. And I don't want to, yes, thank you very much. So what I'm going to do here is add my chicken to the stew. Kim, do you want to add the chicken to the stew for us?
Sure.
Okay.
Get in there and watch.
Here, let me get out of here.
So you're just putting it right on top.
Yes. I think we've taken up all the room that's in there. So what you want to do is cover this with your oil. I'm sorry, with your sauce. I think we may have room for one or two more days. We're good, right? So what we want to do now is allow that flavor from the sauce to seep into the chicken. So we're just going to braise that over on low heat for a few more minutes. And where is my cover? Let that continue to go. Let's check on our rice. Rice is coming along. You can now begin to see the rice. That means the liquid is soaking up nicely. And I am going to move this out of the way. So talked about cleaning up while we cook. Getting ready to finish off here. And we're good. How the plantains coming along, Gail?
Great. It could be cooking faster, but
So there's no, you don't do anything. There's no seasoning on the plantains. They
No.
just as
No.
are and they fry.
Yes,
some people put salt on it.
yes.
Oh,
I don't find that salt is necessary.
yeah.
All right, let me check the rice. Again, I'm just gonna move it. I don't really want it to burn, although for some people, the burn is part of the flavor. I can tell you that it is almost completely cooked at this stage. So we have to watch it a little bit more closely, but that's it. What I'm going to do next, once we get to the point where all of that liquid is absorbed, is cut about, I don't know, 4 ounces of butter. This is optional, and layer it in there. Add my chopped up peppers and onions to it, and we'll stir all of that really well, cover it and let it steam off heat for about 15 minutes, and then we're cooked. Okay, so our rice is pretty cooked. I tried it for taste and I added just a tad more salt. Again, you know, this is not an exact science, but there we go. I am pretty happy with the results here. So the next thing to do is to add our optional butter to this, as well as our vegetables, chopped vegetables. Okay, so that's about half a stick there. And tomatoes. And the interesting thing is that it won't look as colorful once you allow this to sit. I am looking for the butter pads and making sure that they are melted in rice. Okay, so that's well incorporated. And I'm going to just cover that up and we'll let that sit for a little while. And then the stew is also ready. The chicken has had a chance to absorb some of the flavors from the stew. And we are cooked here. I'm going to turn that off as well. And once our rice has had a chance to rest, our fried plantains have rested as well. We are then ready to plate. Okay. Did you enjoy yourself cooking?
Yeah, it was fun.
What do you remember most? My children both had a chance to live in Nigeria for about a year. Dio twice. Yeah, right. And Demi once.
Twice.
Yes. Well, yeah.
Oh.
So what do you want to share about your experiences in Nigeria? What resonated with you?
Oh, I didn't expect to be put on the spot like this. Wow. I personally really enjoyed the time that I spent there. I think the best part though was being able to spend time with the family that lives there. Just because obviously being so far away, we don't get to see them very often. Especially now, my grandfathers, especially now that they're getting older, it was good to have that time.
Well, I guess it helped me to sort of, before I'd been so surrounded by people who were different from me, and it was nice to know that there were people around the world who looked like me, who were like my family, and to know that they weren't, not all of them were living in huts or in poverty like the people who were around me might have wanted me to believe. And so that was a really constructive experience.
Yeah, I remember Demi when you were 2 and you went to Nigeria for, was it 2? No, was it, how old were you the first time? 3 or 4. And you went to school in Nigeria. You said they know how to say my name, which is something that we don't think about here, right? We live here. We work with the population that we live here, and I know that I don't say everybody's name who is not an American name necessarily in the have the accents in the right place. And it never occurred to me that that was something that you would have noticed. So that was nice.
Yeah.
We also brought some fabric and some jewelry from Nigeria to share with you, just to show you what it's like. I said at the beginning of the show that I am sort of dressed in a typical Nigerian way. I wanted to share these with you, and again, you will notice the change or the adaptation of the culture. So these are beads that are strong, are locally mined, and that we wear in Nigeria. So these are nice, beautiful stones. So you wear that around your wrist. But we've added some additional bling to bring it into the 21st century. This is a white version of that same bead, and you would wear it around your neck like this. And people who are royalty are known to wear these, and it is not at all, it would not be in bad taste to layer it on like so, put the earrings on and all that. And we also have a blue colored stone as well. And as for fabric, I'm wearing some of the more commonly seen fabric. There's others. And I love African fabrics because of the color and just the vibrant nature of it. But it's 12 degrees out today. That would not be what I would wear on a day like this. This is called lace and has holes in it, so there's ventilation in your clothing. And just to show more color. And you can make all sorts of things with it. the head tie around my head is just one long strip of fabric, but you can make all sorts of things with it. Dresses, sorry, Diane, I'm covering your face. But so that's some of our fabric. We can lay this out and lay our food on it.
I know in a lot of cultures, there's very traditional wedding jewelry and wedding cloth. Is
Yes.
any of this, would any of
Yes.
this be typical for a wedding?
Yes, the necklace particularly would be, and so would the orange and blue fabric, the lace that I showed you earlier. It really just depends on your family and it depends on your taste, but it can go from very modest to very extravagant. There's even materials now that have bling in it, like sequins and all sorts of things. And the wonderful thing about Nigeria, though, is that everything's tailored for you, right? So everything will fit until you are not that size anymore, right? But it really is a nice luxury that we still have, that you can come up with designs or styles that you want for any given fabric. And we have a tradition when we have occasions like weddings where there's a uniform that's called, and a uniform can be anything from everybody wear orange and brown to here's a specific fabric that you will purchase and tailor. So it's always interesting when you go to those kinds of occasions and people have been given a fabric or uniform to wear, and you see all the different styles that come up. That people have imagined.
So even the wedding guests would
Yes,
purchase a specific outfit
yes,
for the
yes,
wedding?
especially those who are family members and close and friends. It may not be every single guest, but it's not at all uncommon to have uniforms still. It's nice. There's a community feeling when you look out into a crowd of people and you all share this common theme, right? The downside is, especially if you live in America and you don't have many Nigerian occasions to go to, you have tons of uniforms and clothes in your closet that you wear once or twice and then they just kind of sit there.
My favorite part about it though is that you can kind of like have a memento from the day. So like, for example, when my grandfather turned 80, like we all had a specific pattern of fabric, and then we all had clothes made, and even now you can look back and be like, wow, like I remember when we wore that, and it just brings up the good memories of the time that you were able to spend with family and friends. So.
Yeah. All right, I think we are ready to plate.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yes, so we'll go over here and I will start with plating the rice. So you can smell the and I am just going to stick my finger in here and take out the bay leaves because you don't want to eat that. Does not taste good at all. Okay, so there's the rice, and I'm gonna bring the chicken over. And yes. Thank you. Makes your mouth water, huh? Certainly smells good. Tastes good too, sure. I made it, of course it tastes good. Have I ever made anything that doesn't taste good? All
I
right,
don't think you want me to answer
Don't
this.
answer.
Don't ask questions.
I
you don't need the
I get
answer to.
dissed at home, as you can see. All right, so you would then get another bowl and put your sauce in it.
This looks great.
I'm sure it tastes better.
Okay. So there's a tradition around eating as well in Nigeria. Adults eat first, right? And so I would be invited to the table first.
Is it the eldest first and it goes down, or just all
Yes,
adults?
yes, absolutely. And you want to get rid of your soaking paper towel and use your fried plantains that way. So you put a plate together of mainly rice. In African culture, the protein is the side. The carbohydrates, or what's going to fill you up the most, is what you have in abundance on your plate, right? So you get a plate and put some rice on a plate, add a little bit of salad to it, get some chicken, and add a little bit of fried plantains. You can add the sauce to your rice, and bon appetit.
Wow, it's beautiful. It smells amazing. I wish all of our friends who are watching with us could smell this. Every month I say that because the aromas of the food are just so wonderful. So
Sure.
I want to thank you all for coming. And I will also say that, let me come around there. My friends out of the way.
All right. I want to thank you all for coming. I want to remind you that February will be up shortly on our website. So please keep an eye on that, or you'll get an email as a past attendee. February 27th will be World Kitchen Thailand with a special guest who lives here in State College and is currently traveling, but will be with us in February. So check that out. And I want to thank Deo and her family for this amazing food that we can't wait to try. I'll let you know next month how that went. And I want to say, I hope you're staying warm and safe, and hopefully, within a few months, we'll be past this hard time and we can all maybe do something in person. That's our hope, that eventually we can do an in-person World Kitchen and invite you all to that. So thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon.